You're on the Six Screens Telenetwork, earning the reputation of giving all the right ingredients, uninhibited in exposing the hard, cold facts about the Watchtower Society. And now, the end is near.
Well, welcome in everyone to our nightly program, Saturday nightly program that is coming on late at night. So we got apostate babe Linda James. She's your favorite apostate. And we got our co-host tonight, Pete, ex-Jehovah's Witness Curious. You see him on YouTube. They're both coming on here tonight. We're looking forward to the program. It's called Healing After the Watchtower. So they will be exposing the Watchtower tonight. So let's bring them on now and say hello to them. Let's bring on Pete. Let's bring on Linda. Hello, guys.
Hi, Rick.
Hello.
So there you are. So, yeah, it's getting late at night, but I'll tell you what, we still got a lot of people on our phone line. We got people listening in on the Six Screens Video Suite, YouTube, and Facebook. So I'll kind of disappear into the background here, and I'm here if you need me. So you guys do your thing.
Okay. Hey, I'm so glad you're here, Pete. Welcome to Healing After the Watchtower. I am apostate babe Linda James. This is our Pete. I have him as a guest today from his channel, XJW Curious. And today, we're pretty much going to be taking things as they flow. Sometimes I have a subject and teach on it or share my opinion on it. And today we're going to go with our opinions as well. And we're just going to let the conversation flow. We haven't decided what we're going to talk about, but I'll tell you what. Oh my goodness, you've gotten much darker, Pete. So you're too, thank you. There he is.
Spend some time in the
Say that again, please.
I spent some time in the sun.
Did you? Okay. I was thinking about doing that today, but I never got out there. So the show just before us was talking about the Belgium case and how it was overturned. And when I say the Belgium case, I'm talking about there was someone who went to court. Matter of fact, Lloyd Evans did a special on him and how things went in court and how the government there ended up being on the side of those that are Jehovah's Witnesses that believe shunning is not good, okay? And they won. The Jehovah's Witness, ex-Jehovah's Witnesses won against shunning. So this has been overturned, is what Gail and Delon's show was talking about after the storm. And I didn't even realize it, but I had watched the video before that they brought up on their show. And that was using, it's under, you can find their stuff under Bittersweet, even on YouTube. And I can't think of the Italian's name, the Italian guy's name. I want to just call him Machismo, okay? But it's not Machismo. But he's Italian, and he's got this whole thing going on where he and his group are advocates for cults, and they do a great job. And the Watchtower also does a great job of literally appealing and appealing and appealing and appealing, and they never stop. Oh, she wrote it down for me. Thank you, Gail. You're wonderful. Bitter winter. I said it wrong. Thank you. It's my dyslexia, okay? Yes. So the YouTube channel I was speaking of. Please say that again, Pete.
The guy's name you're looking for is Massimo Intervini.
Yes, him. I'm still going to call him Machismo because I don't think, well, I just have opinions, okay? It just makes me feel like it's a fun thing to call him. It's not real wicked. It's just kind of, you know, Machismo. So his real name, right? But he's like one of those off-the-chart genius guys. I think he's probably like you, Pete. And the YouTube channel is called Bitter Winter. And you can go over there and see their stuff. And you'll find things where they're defending other groups as well. But yeah, when I got I got flared up a little bit listening to their show, and I was thinking, oh, it's them. Oh, it's that. Oh, those guys. Okay. So it will have to be something that will go back and forth for quite a while until things can be eventually at the top. But I just want them to let them go to the Supreme Court. Let them go to the Supreme Court for their right to shun their children or their family members. How is that really going to look? Really?
Well, the last time the JWs in the USA tried to get to the Supreme Court wouldn't even hear their case.
What was that on? Do you recall?
Not off the top of my head. It was pretty recent, though.
Nope. Okay. And how does that work? I mean, you might know. Hi, Pixie.
There's a book that's pretty stunning, and the lawyers read it, and it's easy enough for the layman to understand. It's got over 500 cases that the witnesses won. So the Supreme Court used to have a great deal of respect for the integrity and nobility of the witnesses and all like this, and it's all in this legal book. But now the court didn't even want to hear the case. So I'll have to find out what that one is, but I probably read the same thing that Pete did. The shunning thing is interesting from the point of view of the Supreme Court because there was a case with a Greek Orthodox man in America, and he was a Greek Orthodox priest within America, and his board of priests defrocked him.
Really?
And the court said that a board of priests could defrock a person and kick them out. And so that's the case that they go by. So I don't know what they're doing over in Belgium, and I don't know if they'll get to the Hague with it or what, but the precedent case was this Greek Orthodox priest, and they can have their own court and kick him out. So it's that thing of a church being its own court that's
Right. And I believe it's no. I'm thinking a different. Do the Greek Orthodox shun when they defrock or, have someone leave the church?
well, I think of in the Roman Catholic Church of an excommunication. It wasn't a parishioner or a congregant member, and it wasn't what we'd think of as shunning. It was one of their priests. It was fellow priests kicking out another priest.
Okay.
And that was
What about
case on shunning, and the court ruled that a church can have their own tribunal. So that's what's in the way in terms of what witnesses have to deal with when they're shunned or when they're pushed out, that a church can excommunicate. So that's why it's so hard to overturn it.
I believe the excommunicating, I'm not saying it right, disfellowshipping or kicking out, I believe that any group can have the authority to do this if somebody breaks the rules. But what's being associated with this is the shunning, which not all churches that disfellowship their members will do. It's the shunning itself. The members are expected to do to the person that was kicked out. And I don't know when we can get to that. I don't know how that's going to happen, but I hope it does.
In court, look, because of course the court in Belgium is going to be real different on what their precedent cases are. The good part there was in Norway, when the Norwegian government said, well, we don't treat people like that in our communities because The courts in Norway and Denmark, that's some of the oldest laws in Europe. They had a written law on stone when most people were still living in huts in Europe. So for Norway to say, well, that's just against our community standards as Norwegians, that was a big deal in terms of European law. So I don't know if they're going with that or not.
Norway had that female person that was talking about, I'm asking, was Norway the one that they showed where it showed a female woman, light hair, white hair, maybe even gray, where she was speaking of new laws that were put into place last year. And so those laws made it to where they were not okay with the practices of the Watchtower. Am I making sense?
Yeah, that was what happened in Norway.
Okay. Yeah, new rules got brought into the government to where the Watchtower could be held accountable.
Right.
You look very good, much better.
Holland has a court. Holland has a court called The Hague, which is the most powerful court in the world. But I don't know anything about Belgium in that regard.
Okay.
So I don't know where they the hierarchy of European respect for courts and stuff. I really don't. We could get a Ouija board and ask my sweetie. He's in while you're heaven. He'd know.
Okay. Yeah. So Pixie is talking about her previous man that they were sweet on each other, and he has since died. So he was a lawyer, and she speaks of him often.
He was, and too.
Yeah.
He would know, but I don't know, and I know that European law is, they've got different precedent cases than we do for our Supreme Court. But it's a pity that it can't go right to The Hague there in the Netherlands and be standardized for the whole world or something. But then again, the problem they had is they're not, like DeLon and Gail mentioned, they're not really aware of what this shunning thing is. The only other group in America that seems to have this is the Amish. And I don't read novels very much, but I'm tempted to read this little novel at Walmart where the Amish girl gets shunned, because I'm betting that it's real similar,
I have it in a movie in my list of things to watch, and it shows an Amish girl being shunned. But Orthodox Jewish, there's Orthodox Jews, and I don't know if there's many Orthodox Jews, but I did look into one of them, or I looked into them, and they do shun as well. Do you know of any of them that shun, Pete? Any other groups?
Not so much as like religious groups. I know that there are like some primitive civilizations that will actually partake in under certain circumstances, people who bring disgrace to the family or something like that.
Okay.
But like here in the U.S., I think it's the Amish, the Witnesses. There's another group. I believe it's called the Elite Brethren.
Interesting. Okay.
Been compared very similar.
They're on a very large.
Okay. Now, see, when I was married, and my ex-husband wouldn't talk to me for 3 days. I'm sorry, say that again, Pixie?
Said with the Amish, they're shunned. They really don't have anywhere to go, because I think some of them they're Americans, but they don't really realize it. They're schooled in their own schools. Some of them are German speakers. They live in Pennsylvania and Ohio. and they wouldn't know how to get along in the big world with worldly people. They call them the English, and they wouldn't know how to even communicate with them or how to get a job outside of the Amish world.
Yeah, the Amish do have a tradition where when a Amish youth becomes like in their teen years, say 16, 17, they will allow them to go out into the real world for a period of time. And then they're to come back. And the vast majority of the Amish children, once they're exposed to the outside world, actually choose to stay with the Amish. There are a few who, wait a minute, the heck with that, I like this, and will actually leave the Amish community to go with the world. But it's like the reverse of the Jehovah's Witnesses. In the Jehovah's Witnesses, 2/3 of the kids who are raised as witnesses leave the organization, whereas with the Amish, that number is much smaller.
Right.
I believe the isolation has really contributed to that. If you're isolated, and I think Jehovah's Witnesses are self-isolating, like we self-isolated. It keeps us my words are not connecting. I think I caught what the ladies had in the show ahead of us, where their neurons weren't connecting, they weren't coming up with the words. But it gets it to where you're just that much more naive, less educated, and you're less equipped to handle functioning in the outside culture, because Jehovah's, like, these are all groups which are subcultures.
Yes.
And I like that you said if they even know that they are American, like if they even know that they have rights. And I can remember
they don't go to an American regular public school.
Yeah, it's just so, it's like being thrown, well, Joyce Taylor, okay, her quote, or I'm quoting her, it's like being dropped off in China and being told to find your way home. It's just, that's what it's like, in a foreign land.
Yeah. I'll tell you, when I left, the organization, became, full-time worldly. It was a culture shock for me, because even though I had been trending in that way, to become, fully in the world without having the restrictions or the guilt or, the stigma of being a JW attached to me was quite freeing, but it took a while to get used to it.
Oh, yeah.
It helped growing up in it helped the fact that I was from a big city helped. If I had grown up in a really small town or rural or something, I probably wouldn't have been able to do it.
Yeah, where I live, we're about a half hour outside of Boston and about 10 minutes from Providence, Rhode Island. So kind of in the middle. Kind of in the middle of two cities. But we're a good-sized city, about 35, 40,000 people. But very much we have a small-town atmosphere here. I've often said that my hometown wasn't really a geographic place. It's more like a state of mind.
There you go.
Yeah.
Well, I think the witnesses still rent a space in my head, and a friend of mine says, yeah, they need to pay you rent.
I love it. I don't think I could ever totally erase. And it's an ongoing process. I think I heard that from somebody named John earlier today. left me a comment. Recovering from this organization is an ongoing process. I don't think we're ever going to be totally healed or over it. It's our culture of origin, or even if we spend a few years in it, it really does go into us. I'm sorry, go ahead, Pixie.
For me, I don't think it's possible. I still think it still seems to color a lot of things that I do, even though I've actively remade my life 2 or 3 times, and I'm rewriting and remaking my path again, and it's still, I've looked at all different religions. I've looked at paganism. I looked at Christianity again. I've looked at philosophies. I've looked at anthropologies of what it is that people do, and like they were talking tonight about people being tribal. I've looked at all the things that humans are and do and be, and some of those things are me and some of them aren't. But if you had a pie chart and you had different influences on it, the witnesses still have about an 1/8 on there. There's still stuff on there that I'm only recently saying, well, wait, I could do that if I wanted to, or why
Yes.
do I feel superstitious about? I wasn't brought up to be superstitious, or where did that come from, or why am I not succeeding more at this? Is there a brick on my head that was put there in a witness talk? It's some of that's still there, and even though I'm conscious of it.
I found that there was many things that are superstitious within the Watchtower, but it was labeled something else. Can you think of any of them, Pete? Things that were superstitious? No?
Oh, well, the thing that got me, because my mom and I, we're not wealthy by any stretch of the imagination. So we used to shop a lot at secondhand stores, thrift shops, things like that. And the Watchtower.
I'm sorry. I'm just saying I knew you'd think of something. Thank you.
Yeah. The Watchtower would warn witnesses in the publications about buying things at yard sales or flea markets or used stores, because we never knew if the person who owned it before us was demonized. And so
Right?
by buying these used products and bringing them into our house, we were welcoming the demons into our home.
This would be superstitious.
Yes.
Very superstitious. So, but it was labeled something else. And so, like what you're saying, Miss Pixie, is we weren't raised to be superstitious, and we believed we weren't being, we believed that. But in actuality, we really were raised to be superstitious.
Yeah. And most of the witnesses shop thrifts. I got my best stuff there.
Oh, yeah.
That's where I used to buy most of my book bags.
Someone in the chat. I'm sorry, go ahead, Pete.
How ironic would that be if I was going to door with a demonized book bag?
Right? Oh, my goodness.
Good one. That's a real good one.
Jay in the chat for YouTube is saying have to have a barn party. To me, that sounds very similar to a garage sale. So I'm asking Jay, is it very similar to a garage sale? Have you ever heard of a barn party?
Burn party.
Barn. Burn?
Yeah.
Oh my God, I'm so sorry. See, dyslexia all the way. Whatever.
It's like when
I guess I can't be more embarrassed than embarrassed. So there it is. There'll be more to come.
When I was a kid, like back in the mid 70s, and it went into the early 80s, there was a big push by parents about warning labels on records, and how rock and roll was using the backward masking to send satanic messages. And so a lot of Christian groups would have album burning parties, albums from all these
Okay.
groups, allegedly, and which was great for record sales because the kids would just go out and buy another copy of the album.
Speaking
Now
of
see,
asking, there's a guy named John Oakes, I think his name is, and he's often on radio shows, and he's got a way to listen to speeches. Sometimes he'll do, like in election years, he'll do political speeches. I would love to hear the governing body's speeches backwards with John Oakes's audio material. He's got a gizmo that will work, and I just would love to hear what they're really saying according to his theories.
Yeah, that's one good thing about the way the governing body talks is, they're very slow and deliberate. So when you would play that backwards, it would probably sound very, very clear. Like most of the albums, these people that would come on TV to talk about it would say, now listen to this lyric forward, and it would play a clip of a song that everybody recognized. Said, but listen to it when you play it backwards. And it would be like, see, it clearly says Satan is my leader. And that's not what I heard.
So he's got a gizmo where you don't have to have a reel-to-reel, and I'm ready to buy his package to try that.
now was this part of the satanic panic?
No, absolutely.
That time frame?
John Oakes,
Okay.
his radio guest, he's put speeches of politicians through his audio gizmo.
So he has an audio gizmo, and that's what does it do again? Tell me again, Pixie.
He's been on Coast AM a lot. I talked to him. I called him and found he had some courses, and now he's selling the audio thing, and like he had a political speech, and when it played it backwards, the person said something like, "I'm very selfish."
Okay. Hi, Teresa.
And
Or
so
Teresa.
it's hear what they really are thinking.
A gizmo. Fascinating. I can remember my neighbor, he was about a year or two older or younger than me, committed suicide, a bullet through the brain right there. And my parents, of course, my mother, told me that they were sure it was because he was listening to the backwards playing records. And I must say that I've never seen a clear body bag until I watched my neighbor be taken away in one. That was the strangest thing. He was wearing his shorts. They were just kind of like khaki colored shorts, as in like a manila envelope kind of khaki. And they were the ones with the 2 feet hanged in, brand or whatever. And that's all he was wearing, just those shorts. Like, that's what he wore every day. And then he had very curly hair. And when I went to the viewing of him, they took a comb and pulled out all of his curl. And it was so, that kind of stuff disturbed me. But that was what my mother wanted me to know, that she was sure that he was listening to these records backwards, and that's what caused his suicide.
Well, there weren't too many records that did that. I'm sure he had other very sad and serious problems, and I'm sorry for your loss.
I believe so as well.
During the height
Well, I don't
of
really
that,
get over suicide like other losses. It's funny that I had a classmate. Funny, I mean ironic. I had a classmate 50 years ago, and I still think of him. You know, it's a really
What
sad thing.
was it? Was this classmate? Did this classmate commit suicide?
Yeah, he did.
I'm sorry to hear that.
yeah, there was a
Yeah, you don't really get over them. It's. I mean, you miss a lot of people that have gone, and you have a lot of people that you love even more. But that suicide thing is always so shocking.
Yeah. Go ahead, Pete.
I was just going to say that. Nope.
Oh, you're commenting. I'm sorry. You know, Pete's the best at commenting to the chat. You're really right on with that stuff. Thank you.
No, I was just one of the bands that I used to listen to back in like the 80s came out with a song, and there was a kid who claimed this kid had committed suicide, and his family claimed it was because of the lyrics of the album, and they actually sued the band. And
I think I remember some of that.
I think it ended up being an out of court settlement. But it was
that was in my law class. We learned about that.
right during the height of the backward masking hysteria on TV. The band Pink Floyd decided to have a little fun with it, and so they intentionally backmasked a track on one of their albums. And when you play it backwards, it says to join our fan club, mail, submit whatever fee was to, and they gave a P.O. box number and an address. So, they had a little fun with it. But you could clearly hear it, Most of the backward masking stuff was, like I said before, you're just hearing gibberish. But they'd be like, it's clearly saying that Satan is my leader, And then there were like rumors like the band Kiss was supposed to be kids in Satan's service, which was utter rubbish. But, people just trying to, project their beliefs on everybody else. What organization do I know that does that? Oh, I know.
So I grew up near a band called Slayer, and so I remember their backyard parties, like back when they were first coming out, right? And a friend of mine even has one of their handwritten party invitation things, and I went to, and I worked with the lead singer's sister, and they all looked the same. They just all look the same. Now, they're very Catholic, and the lead singer, I can't think of his name, the bass player, his kids go to Catholic school. I mean, they're ordinary people, and it was all show. It was just all show. And they had a great time doing it, and they are like considered the worst of the worst of the worst, and they might be, but there's a lot of showmanship that has to show up. It's not always necessarily what they are portraying that is necessarily the case,
Yeah, what
I mean, isn't it, who's the one that golfs? That's the guy that...
The one that golfs?
Summer.
That you mean school's out for summer forever?
Who did that? What's his name again?
Alice Cooper.
Yes.
Yeah, Alice Cooper is an Episcopalian that likes to golf and does great hospital work.
His
things.
father
I mean,
was a minister.
off stage, these people are people, and a lot of it is done for the show.
Yeah, Alice Cooper's father was the minister of the church.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Right. So,
to see the
a little bit
juxtaposition.
of eyeliner and some leather, and you're on stage. You can play many different roles that way.
And he's still doing it today, and he's like in his 70s.
Yeah, I think it's great.
Yep. God bless him. I know I won't be on stage in my 70s.
Hmm.
Yeah.
You never know.
No, I know.
You never know. So we've gone from. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
The 2012 was the last time I was on stage, and that's it.
Wow.
So I was 51. Yeah.
So Pixie, are you a coast to coast listener for a long time now?
I was. I haven't recently, but George and I got along, but I just got so fascinated whenever he was on with the backmasking. He was my favorite guest, John Oakes.
Okay, George and you got along as in George and Nori and you got along as in just from listening? Okay. I used to be he has that. I used to be a coast to coast junkie through and through. Okay, all the way back to the AL days.
Yeah.
And back in December, they were going to have a show on December 21st, 2012, and I looked forward to that show for years. They talked about it. They were going to have a room. What is that? Round table room. And I missed it and can't find the show anywhere. So if you can get in touch with him so I can hear the show, I'd be really appreciative.
And what was the topic?
The calendar quitting. That one calendar was going to stop that day. The Mayan calendar.
Well, they probably have that archived somewhere.
Yeah.
And I've looked for it. I think I have.
The website he has and see if it's archived.
Yeah, I've looked for it.
It was an embarrassment. Everybody was waiting for Y2K and.
Yeah, when you think about it, since 2000, people have been growing up with one thing after another, just this doomsday crap. And, today, our teenagers are just like, well, like, whatever. Like, you can't, they've heard it all. They've grown up on it,
You know what I discovered the other day, Linda?
What?
Something that it was kind of like subtle, but all of a sudden the light clicked. Like I was looking at one of the streaming services, looking for a movie or a TV show to watch. And there was a whole section of documentaries about serial killers.
Oh.
How far has our society devolved when we're at the point that serial killers are entertainment?
Yes,
So
yes.
It's no wonder the kids today are, clueless and messed up when they're being bombarded with all this stuff. Like we live in the information age, which is good, but it also has a curse. Because not all the information is useful.
Yeah, there's a curiosity of like true crime that's been very common, and I think that falls under the category of like mysteries, and we want to know who did it and how they did it or whatever. But back in 1980, I had a friend, a very dear friend from school. His name was Charles Miranda, And he was actually killed and murdered by the freeway killer, who was a serial killer. William Bonin was his name. So that was a pretty traumatic time of my life. My dear friend was murdered by William Bonin. It's just like what really angered me is I remember the weekend before he was going to go out. He was going to go out with these two girls that started going to our school. I didn't know who they were, what they were going to, what was up or whatever. And he was looking forward to going to Hollywood with these girls. They invited him. So, okay. But they came back without him. And I just remember seeing them on a daily basis. He was, Charles Miranda was not found until about 6 weeks later. He was identified by his teeth, a dentist's teeth, x-rays, and anybody can look it up. William Bonin, his victims were young boys. Most serial killers or pedophiles are like usually Caucasian men that are straight. In this case, William Bonin was in fact a gay man. And I think part of what his anger was that he hated that he was gay. I think that was something going on with him. But I used to, so I've read a lot about William Bonin. His I'm not excusing his actions because they were just absolutely horrid. And he took a dear friend of mine away. When I read about his childhood, it was absolutely horrendous. And many of us have had horrendous childhoods and don't end up like this. And I'm not saying that, it's to be expected, but it's a bit understandable. It's not right, but it's a bit understandable. And Charles Miranda was my friend. He was killed at the age of 15 because I don't know how it happened. The girls that he went to Hollywood with, and this was before cell phones, this was 1980. I don't know if he got separated from them or lack of communication, or I don't know why they left him there. But to this day, my motto is, you do not leave your buddy behind. And I'm always the designated driver. I never leave anybody behind, ever. Gabby is talking about most murderers know their victims. And that may be the case. Serial killers, I'm not sure if that's the case, though. Serial killers are actually, from what I understand, they do this because they really don't have any other way to get a thrill or to get a rise in their, like they have no sense of ups and downs. And to get a sense of an up feeling, they have to do something so drastic. Am I making sense? They're sociopathic or something like that.
We, up in my area here, I live not far from an area that in supernatural circles is called the Bridgewater Triangle. And one of the occurrences that happened in the Bridgewater Triangle was there were a bunch of disappearances from the cities of like Fall River and New Bedford, which are, really big cities. And all these disappearances, they ended up leading to a satanic cult that was sacrificing these people out in the state forest in the area. And most of the people that were being sacrificed were the type of people no one would really miss. The majority of them were like prostitutes or homeless people, and so these serial killers, they had a purpose in mind, but they didn't know their victims. They were just like picked at random off the street. So I think, when you've got like a domestic case, obviously, like whenever there's a married couple involved, they always suspect the spouse. Isn't like number one.
Absolutely.
times
And I need to, I'm sorry, I need to correct myself. I think I made it sound like Gabby was saying most serial killers, but she did not. She was saying most murderers know their victims, and that's true. Yeah, my head was still in serial killers.
Hello, can I make a comment?
Yes, who is this?
Hello, Tony. Okay, how you doing, my lady? This is Christopher.
It's Christopher. Did you have fun in the earlier show? They all loved you.
Yeah, I made a comment.
Good.
I come on sporadically, yeah. But I want to
Let me ask. Sure. Let me ask Pete if he was done saying what he was saying. I want him to be able to finish that out, and then.
Yeah. No, that was all.
That was all. Okay. Sure, Christopher. Go right ahead.
The one thing I want to say about the music issue, that masking and like what Pete was saying, some of it might be kind of rubberish or gibberish. That's almost like a off play. It's like saying, okay, it's chicken before the egg. Everybody's going to have their opinion. But here's the thing with music. Music, and this is a known fact, music is the only thing that can penetrate every orifice of your body. It can make you sad, happy, mad, hyped, or whatever. So it can control your moods through the vibration of beats. These artists now, what they do with the music, they do it on different frequencies. And those frequencies vibrate in everybody differently. So this is what they do. They take music and the words, and there's allegedly, I'll just say allegedly a room, and what they do, they pray over the new album, whether it's rock, whether it's rap, whether it's whatever they think can convince people. And they pray over it, and they put influences into it. Now, like I said before, those influences can go into music because we play songs in our car, we play them in the home, everything. So those entities or music can get inside your house just through the song. And here's what I mean by that. If I were standing in front of your house and I say, I don't like you because you have a cat instead of a dog, and I'm yelling at the top of my voice, you'll say, okay, this guy's kind of off his rocker. Now watch this. If I had 1,000 people standing in front of your house and we all said the same thing at the same time, it's going to create a stronger vibration, a stronger reaction in you, and it's going to create an energy. So all those people forming something creates. So even across the United States, they say there are 350 million people in the United States. If everybody was listening to this exact same song at the same time, and this is what I'll do, I won't say his name, but the rapper that says, hold up, which is the form of God's name, if you want to use that. Now, when they do that, if you had 1 million people in every state saying it at the same time, what kind of universal vibration do you think that's going to produce? Now, what is going to produce if just 50,000 people say it, whatever energy is directed to, or you want to say spirit or consciousness is directed to, it's going to feed into that. And that's what they want. So that's their form of worship on the musical end. So whatever demonic spirit or influence that's into the beat in the song, then they're going to be worshipped. That's why, and all of us have heard a song, and from the first time you hear it, you say, oh man, I like it. And you'll play it and play it and play it. And you might not even know why. You might only know a couple of the lyrics or verses. What happens is it resonates with you for a particular reason. But not only you, somebody in Iowa, Arizona, California, that's not coincidental. And those are things that are real. And you have to realize, if you want to control the younger generation, television, cartoons, but music is the biggest influence. With music is the biggest influence, they're going to get the new music first, especially now with the social media age. And they're going to be more influenced by it than you. more songs, various artists, and they keep producing artists. And I always say, Justin Bieber's not the best singer. Mariah Carey has a high range octave. So why is it that these people have a cult following? And that's what it is, a cult following based on the words and lyrics. Once I have a following, just like the JWs, I control them. I control them with my songs. I control them with my musical content. And that's why that music is very real. And so you can't take it lightly. All the songs, if you reverse it backwards, correct, I mean, like Steve said, some of them are rubbers and gibberish. But for the most part, the ones that they want to influence younger and older or any generation, they can do it. And this is my last quote. I put a quote on the screen, and Hitler said, "Give me any generation and give me their music, and I'll control them."
Who was it that said this quote?
Hitler.
Oh, okay. Okay. Do you have a comment, Pete? Thank you, Chris.
The thing, and this is something that I've become aware of within the last year or so. If you go on YouTube, for instance, and you're looking for like music to sleep by, you know, or something like a meditation music or sleep music, you'll see a bunch of channels and they will tell you, you know, music, and they'll tell you the megahertz rating of the tonal quality of the music, because certain frequencies do inspire certain things. Now, I tried like a bunch of different, you know, I went through this period of insomnia where I just couldn't sleep for anything. And I would try like falling asleep to bird sounds and flowing rivers and all, you know, all kinds of stuff. But I found like this one channel, and when I listen to that one specific channel, I'm out like a light, and it's like the best quality sleep I ever had. You know,
Really?
so for me, it seems that, you know, whatever frequency that channel is emitting, that's my trigger point to go to sleep. You know, most of the music today really does suck. So the fact that it's so popular would have to tell you that there's something hidden in there to make it that way, because it surely, people don't like the music today for its content. You know, they can't. So, yeah, I think Chris makes a valid point there. You know, and the upper elite, look, there are a lot of good singers. You know, there's a lot of great singers who never make it in the industry. And there's a lot of very mediocre singers who are superstars. You know, and there's a reason for that. You know, and I don't want to start going into conspiracy theories, but there's a reason why very mediocre people are superstars.
About generations. And he spells his name with a Z, Days of Noah. And I just watched it today, and he was talking about from the beatnik 50s on through to today. And it was a great documentary. And a lot of the people that get the record contracts are not the most talented. They really aren't.
No.
And then you've got people like Sinatra and Elvis that, you know, they're still selling. But it's an interesting world, the popular song.
Right.
So that falls under what I'm thinking is Malua control, if that's the case.
Yeah.
When you go into, say, a church that's very evangelical, very Pentecostal, and you spend time with the worship music at first, there's more going on than simply the praise music. So the lights are down low, and it brings in a time of repetition in the music, choruses and stuff, and it brings you into a really relaxed, and what many have come to believe is the Holy Spirit. Ushering in the Holy Spirit was the whole purpose of praise and worship within mainstream Christianity. So that's an experience that they experience, but it is not just something by itself. It's a bit manipulated, with the lights and with, repetition of songs that you keep going with and you keep going with, and then there's those that'll speak in tongues, and I'm not saying whether or not it's a real thing or not, but that kind of falls under chanting, and it gets people into a mood of real relaxation. So when the service does start,
Tones in America, there's tones in
I'm sorry.
American gospel that are marvelous, and
Mm-hmm.
there's tones in a gospel choir that just go right to certain parts of your brain, and
Mm-hmm.
a good gospel choir could make a believer out of anybody. I mean, it's just
Mm-hmm.
so phenomenal, wonderful, and American and fabulous and spiritual and every other thing. So we're talking about frequency and tones, and it's music can do that. Jimi Hendrix had certain tones that hit the, I don't even know how to describe it.
He did a lot of harmonics, didn't he?
Well, Hendrix was out of the Air Force. He understood electronics like nobody's business. He loved Mozart, and he was one of the best players that ever lived. But there's tones that he hits that are somewhere between God and sex, and it just hits that tone, and even Clapton never hit that tone. And I've been on fan sites and people, we talk about this, and I'm not the only one that feels this way about Jimi Hendrix's work. And he was hardly ever on a top 40 radio station, but he still has a loyal following to this day. He was a maestro.
He took a Fender guitar, because he's left-handed, turned it around, restringed it.
He's
Brilliant.
Stuff about Hendrix, one of a kind. He's a real American treasure. They finally did an American Experience PBS, one part about him. His family had fought over who had the rights to tell his story for years. So there finally is an American Experience on PBS for Hendrix. And what a great human being and a great American talent. But tones that nobody else could find.
So I'm kind of confused with the tones and a tone and a note. And
Okay, well,
isn't there a difference?
Note. Well, he did augment them with electronics because his Fender wasn't just anybody's Fender. He had a background in Air Force electronics. So when he would do wah-wahs and sounds and things, he had fine-tuned that instrument like nobody ever has before or since.
Well, there's this thing called a wah-wah pedal that you plug it into your amp, and you take your foot and, like you do on the gas pedal of your car, and it actually helps to make that kind of sounds.
Yeah, he pioneered a lot of that, and some really great players like Stevie Ray Vaughan and all that.
Oh, yeah, he was something else.
Yeah, but it's still not the same as the original of Hendrix writing it and doing it. I mean, and Stevie Ray Vaughan does a pretty good job of note for note on some of those very complex Hendrix pieces. But so all this is out there, and it gets real interesting. But Annie from Canada mentioned something tonight on one of the earlier shows. She was talking about Brother Cook there up there in the governing body, and how he's standing by his lake and everything, and he looks like he's very well fed and taken care of. The governing body is kind of, they think they're the Beatles or something. And just because they live in a lake, you know, there's some peasant down here that's a true believer in everything the witnesses say. And they're looking up to them. And it's like, well, just because they have a mansion doesn't mean you have one. Just because they're well fed doesn't mean you have one. That it's almost like some of the members now, it's like their life could be really, really dreary, but they can look up to these governing body members living by the lake. I mean, it's kind of that same rock star fandom.
It is. And the music we listen to creates an experience in us, right? And it's that experience in us that makes us a fan of whatever artist it is. So a fan is like, you know, short for, you know, things that are favored. So you favor that certain artist because this certain experience happened in you that you felt like. So in other words, when I'm a singer, I am a singer. And if somebody says to me, oh, that was a great song, that's a great compliment. I love it. But when I hear somebody tell me that they were touched, like they experienced the song, it's a greater compliment to me, because when I sing, I have an intention to touch the audience. I have an intention to create a certain experience in my audience. And that's what makes it an enjoyable thing to me. It's like, it's a service. It's a form of giving. So just like someone would deliver a plate from the restaurant that you ordered, it's like, here it is, and please enjoy, you know. It's no different than that. It's a service. But when they get to have a good experience, it's like when somebody gets to have a good meal and they enjoyed it, it speaks so much more than simply, so in other words, music really does touch people, and I really agree with Christopher on that. I also wanted to add, did you know there was a time under Rutherford, he got rid of music. There was no kingdom melodies. He didn't allow music. Did you know that?
That's because...
Then they had an orchestra for a while, and then John Williams got the contract to do some of the more recent music, and the whole album is really great. But now the witnesses, I don't know if they're using it that much. But he entered a contest that they had. It was advertised in the back of Variety magazine. And it was John Williams that, when the music got better, that wrote some of that stuff. Some of it was great.
What were you going to say, Pete, about Rutherford?
It was during Rutherford when they were, you know, going out with the record players, and all they would do was put a record of a Rutherford speech on it and stand at the door and play it. You know, and like the witnesses weren't even talking to these people. It's like, knock, knock, knock. Hey, listen to this. And you would hear a Rutherford speech. So maybe Rutherford just wanted all albums to have his voice and no music. I'm sure he related it to a pagan ritual. That was his go-to. It's a pagan ritual.
He would have called it something, definitely. So it was about a year or two after he passed that they brought back music into, you know, the worship and everything. And
so there's a new book there, but it's about a $45 book. But there's a whole new book about Rutherford.
Yep.
What is it called?
I'm not sure. I was talking to this on one of the Facebook things the other day, and I'll have to do more research on it. But my dad, way back, said that people took it. He said Rutherford took it from Russell because Russell had men and women that he wanted to inherit the business after he died. And
Oh, yeah.
one was his real sister from his real family, and also some brothers and sisters that he'd worked with in corporate and editing and publishing and all. And Rutherford walked in and took it. And so this book focuses on how Rutherford took over. And I guess Rutherford had a
Okay.
lot of, he had mistresses in Beth Sarim.
Oh
I
yeah.
don't know, once for
Yeah,
two for Tuesday or what, but
that man was something else. Go
If
ahead,
you go-
Pete.
he was.
If you go into text messaging or chat lingo, Rutherford is what they would call a POS. You know, people ask me, you know, what about Joseph Rutherford? I say, everything you need to know about Rutherford can be summed up in a few words. He was a lawyer. That's it.
Hmm?
You know, I mean, sorry, Bob. But
He was also a womanizer and a drunk, and
Oh,
he
yeah.
had whiskey shipped during Prohibition over the Canadian border, and it was good whiskey too.
That's right.
And when people were hungry
Oh,
and
yeah.
starving, that beautiful house there in California, and two Cadillacs, and he was something else.
and he, in 1933, he wrote the Declaration of Facts, sent a letter to Adolf Hitler saying, yeah, we right with you on how you feel about the Jews.
Hmm.
Now, that was a big.
He was trying to
when I
kiss.
saw that I just about fell off my chair.
Speaking
Yep.
of Christian neutrality. So,
Right.
yeah, Rutherford-
Who would do this? Rutherford. The wow. Okay.
Look, Charles Taze Russell was a sincere Bible student. You look at his history, and he went from one religion to another. He was a student of the Bible. He wanted to learn about the Bible. And that's why the group he founded was called the International Bible Students. Now,
Association.
Russell put in his will, he listed 5 people that he wanted to succeed him as president and the board of directors for the Watchtower. And then he named 5 others as alternates in case one of those couldn't serve after his death. Rutherford was actually in the second 5. He was an alternate. So Rutherford was never supposed to be in the top tier. Another thing in Russell's will was that the Watchtower was to be the only magazine that was printed by the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society. Yet Rutherford started the Awake in violation of Russell's will. And then, of course, my favorite, and I use this one all the time because Jehovah's Witnesses are told by the Watchtower all of our teachings come from the Bible. And I say, look up Leviticus 19:26, and that's where it says, the do not eat blood rule. So look up Leviticus 19:28, which is the do not get tattoos rule. But Leviticus 19:27 tells men not to disfigure the edge of their beard, not to change the shape of your beard. And yet Rutherford, because of his personal dislike for Russell, made the rule that JW men were to be clean shaven in violation of the biblical commandment in Leviticus 19:27. Mic drop.
Thank you. This is why I bring you on the show. Because you know this stuff, and I know you know this stuff, and you let me correct you even when you're off a little bit, And you so were not just now. So mic drop is right. Thank you.
Yeah.
Ta-da. Ta-da. That was great.
Chris makes a comment in the chat that the early organization owned radio stations. Yeah, they actually had a flagship station in New York City, WBBR, which featured, JW. It was the radio version of JW Broadcasting. They had shows and they played talks, and they had a live orchestra at times playing music. And they actually sent their signal like nationwide to other radio stations. So it was like they were syndicated. It was a big deal. And I think it was probably sometime in the maybe the late 50s, early 60s when they sold off, their radio station and stopped doing that. But that was another.
Did you mention? Yes. Did you mention that they would? So they had the radio station, and then they would have other people use time slots on their. I want to call it almost like six screens. Rick has this platform, and then we come on certain hour slots. We're not paying for it, but didn't Rutherford do something similar where people would pay for time slots to be on that radio station?
Oh, I'm sure he did. But Rutherford was the guy who came up with the slogan, was it 1921? Advertise, advertise, advertise.
Advertise, advertise.
In Rutherford, Jehovah's Witnesses were selling Miracle Oil, Miracle Wheat. Every tip.
Did you say that was Rutherford?
Yeah, everything was a gimmick. Everything.
I think Miracle Wheat was under Russell, and Gabby said something. Oh, did they keep selling it? Gabby was mentioning that Russell talked about redemption for all instead of just part of him. And then Rutherford comes in and does the great crowd and the big crowd and the little crowd and all that, separated them.
Yeah, that was 1935.
Yeah.
Russell celebrated Christmas. Russell celebrated birthdays, Mother's Day. Russell did not believe in shunning or disfellowshipping. Russell taught the worship of Jesus. And actually Rutherford did to an extent too. And it wasn't until after
I read.
It was Knorr was the one who shifted the focus from Jesus to Jehovah, which is kind of ironic because, as a corporation has to have a business charter, like a mission statement. And the last time the Watchtower updated their charter was in 1945, and that charter says that the organization is for the worship of Jehovah and Jesus. But yet 6 years, I think it was 1951, where Knorr came out and said, no, we don't worship Jesus any longer. He is a subordinate. So he's even violating their own legal charter. Interesting.
No wonder I haven't been able to find a more recent charter, because that was the only one I could find. Okay, this now makes sense.
Well, the JW.org was a complete rebranding.
Yeah.
But that would be more in the realm of advertising.
Well, this Rutherford. Remember, Rutherford was the one who got members to put on their signs, those signs you wear over your clothes, and picket in front of like Catholic churches and stuff, calling, saying religion is a snare and a racket. This is what he got the Jehovah's Witnesses to do. And he got them to do other things too that encouraged the community to not like them. Okay, so when we hear about much of this persecution, some of it was.
He was right on that one.
Sure, he was right, and I can be right on some things too, but I'm not going to go pick at their home and tell them so. It's just like he was setting his members up as pawns to get their asses kicked. Okay, but they've tarred and feathered them, right? Treated them like crap anywhere.
People don't like it when they go knocking on their doors on Saturday morning. In Rutherford's day, it's like, listen to this recording. You know, man, those people.
Oh no, yeah.
Out of them constantly. You know, you go to a door and you're not even having the conversation. You know, listen to this. And to me, Rutherford did not have exactly the most soothing voice. Yeah, but it's probably more a result of technology at the time, but hard to listen to.
My parents were there, my young parents, years ago. My mother, she was so beautiful and so delicate, and I think she was pulled out of that picket line. You know, that was people could be pretty violent back then.
Yeah.
But
then the police were there to protect them.
That was great that somebody came to their house with a record player, because a lot of them had never seen one. I mean, it's hard for us to understand now how those were good advertising techniques in terms of effectiveness, but they were.
Yeah, and there was also people that would take their cars and literally turn their cars into like an advertisement for the religion. So they would have these big, huge, loud speakers on them, and they'd park somewhere and turn on Joseph Rutherford blasting through the town. Like people had to hear this, you know.
My town. There were 2 court cases in my town in the 1930s prior to World War II time. That was not popular because people didn't want to be woken up with that.
Right.
That's why
People
that didn't
don't want
last
to be
very
woken
long.
up for
There were
anything.
cease and orders about that truck.
People
What
don't
did you
wanna
say, Pete?
People don't want to be woken up, period. You know?
Oh,
I
yeah.
don't care. It's an air raid siren. People don't want to be woken up.
Oh, my God, you're so right. There was a few testimonies, though, that they would tell. Let me finish this. Hold on a second. Let me finish this up. There was a few testimonies that the organization would tell about how some people were successfully brought to the organization because of somebody parking their truck and blasting Rutherford and his message, you know. So, go ahead, Pixie.
I was just going to say that Rutherford was unpleasant, so I don't think he minded that his techniques were unpleasant.
No, I don't think he did mind. It's as though he just, like, nobody could have talked him into realizing just how absolutely uncouth and rude you were being. Just, I don't know. He didn't care. Did not care.
Had the conscience of a lawyer. Even
Now,
the fact
do we...
the judge, you know, he was just a lawyer.
He was never a judge. I'm not sure he even went to law school. He was a con man of the most effective type.
I recall him saying that he was like a what do you call it, reporter. So that would be like taking the minutes or writing down whatever's happening in court. So that's not a lawyer position, is it?
Attorney or a judge. Yeah. He had all kinds of people bamboozled. But he was I guess he was a big boss. He knew how to rule over people.
Yeah, he had charisma.
Which is strange because Pastor Russell was beloved by all his followers, and then Rutherford with his big shoes shows up and takes it. It was. I'm looking forward now to maybe buying that book. That's an awfully expensive book. I'm going to have to wait for a used copy, but there must be even more for it to be such a thick book. There's got to be even more than the stories that you and I have heard.
One thing.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, one thing a lot of people seem to forget is that Rutherford did not take over the entire organization. Because when Rutherford took over, there was a split in the Bible students, and there were a few different, factions that broke off, and one of those factions is what became Jehovah's Witnesses. I mean, to this day, the International Bible Students are still operating.
Yes.
There are still groups of them. So,
And they see us as a splinter group, don't they? I'm sorry, JW's as a splinter group.
Well, they think of us as apostates because we split from the original group, and that our beliefs are different than what they teach. So Rutherford, it was actually the first apostate, and the Jehovah's Witnesses. See, this is, as I said before, Russell was a student of the Bible, but it was under Rutherford that Jehovah's Witnesses became a cult.
It was under Rutherford that we became a cult? Yes, absolutely.
It was because, his personality, his leadership, he was setting all the doctrines. Under Russell, there was an elder arrangement where the congregation would elect the elders. In other words, they chose the people from their congregation that would take the lead. Rutherford did away with the elder arrangement, placed a Watchtower picked presiding overseer for each congregation to directly report to the Watchtower what that congregation was doing. And then when Knorr came in around 1970, well, Knorr came in 43, 42, but finally in 1970, he reverted back to the elder arrangement, but it was still people that were picked by the Watchtower. So it was a hybrid between the Russell and the Rutherford thing. But it was Rutherford that made it. Rutherford was the one who changed the belief from a cross to a stake.
Yes.
That was a Rutherford thing.
Also, until about 35 and 36, everybody had a SIP. After Rutherford,
yes,
2 classes.
Everybody had a SIP. That's what I'm saying that Gabby was saying earlier. It was before he made the 2 classes. You're right.
Yeah, you look
You're
up
right.
You look in the Proclaimers book, I think it is, and it'll tell you in the 1935 memorial, which was the last memorial before they changed the teaching, 83% of all attendees took of the emblems. Now,
how many percent?
83%. There was like 60 some odd thousand people who attended the memorial that year, and over 50,000 partook of the emblems.
Okay.
Yeah. Then it was in October of 35 that he changed the teaching, and after that, the partakers dropped off drastically.
Now, in the comments under YouTube, someone named Bob Roberts is asking, was Rutherford the one that sympathized with Hitler?
No, Rutherford, yes.
He sympathized with Hitler, so
1933.
there's a okay, and that was having to.
Yeah, you can look it up online, the Declaration of Facts. There's a whole Wikipedia page on it, and down the bottom there's references that, legitimate references you can look up.
So the Declaration of Facts is a copy of the letter that he wrote to Hitler. Is that correct?
Yeah, what it was actually a pamphlet that Rutherford wrote, and it was for mass distribution in Germany to all the German people so that they would understand what the people were about. But he also sent a copy to Hitler. So it's like, look at
Oh my
us.
God.
We're right there with you. It did him no good.
Another
So-
story too, because I went over to the archive at the Holocaust Museum because I was working on another project, and I had a good relationship with one of the archivists there. And one day, instead of working on my project, I talked to him a little bit about some other things. And he comes by my desk there with a folder and drops the folder in front of me. And it was about Germany and the branch office at that time.
Wow.
And there was a man named Carl who sold out all his so-called brothers to save his own skin at the branch office in Germany. Fact.
Wow. I would love to see that stuff. Me and you need to take a trip to the Smithsonian over the internet sometime together. You could show me around.
Yeah, there were about 364 or 5 people that died, about 365 of witnesses that died due to Carl's selling them out.
When you say he was selling them out, would that cause them to be put in concentration camps next, or would they be handled in a different way?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes?
That's it.
Okay. That's what led to them being... Okay.
He maneuvered so that he and the branch office were fine, but about 365 people were killed. So that's brotherly love for you.
Wow. Yeah, wow.
It's in the Watchtower, they like to recycle stories, and they even recycle, lines or statements. And one of their favorite stories to tell is the story of August Dickman, who was in 1939. He was in a concentration camp, and he was asked to sign a confession or a declaration to say that he renounced Jehovah's Witnesses.
Renounced his faith.
And he wouldn't sign it, and he was executed. But he had actually signed it a year earlier for another legal proceeding. Before he was in the concentration camp, he was in court, and in court he signed it, thinking that
Wow.
he would get a decreased sentence, and he still got sent to a concentration camp. And of course the Watchtower says that the commandant said, is there any of you others who would want to sign, do any of you want to sign this now? And 2 brothers stepped forward, but not to sign. They wanted to renounce the ones that they had signed earlier. Like that actually happened.
Right?
That's the Watchtower narrative, but there were stories in the Watchtower from people who were actually there, and none of them tell the story the same way that the Watchtower does. So It's quite interesting.
There's many on YouTube that were, witnesses from that time that tell their stories, and you can find them. Yes.
My favorite one is, Carl Klein, when he tells the story of how Rutherford admitted he was an ass.
Yep. Down at the bottom.
Yep, my favorite piece ever written in a Watchtower.
And isn't it down in the small print as a...
Yeah, well,
what are those?
I think in the original article, it might have actually appeared in a paragraph. But on the digital one now, it's just a footnote. So you'll see a
footnote,
sentence,
that's the word.
You'll see a sentence that says, Rutherford would, always make a comment, regardless of how hurtful it was. And then there's the asterisk. And when you look down in the footnotes, it's, when referring to his prediction of 1925.
25, yes.
Boy, I really made an ass of myself with that.
Yeah. He even used a pyramid.
Oh, yeah.
He even used a pyramid in the same way Russell used the pyramid to come up with 1914, but Rutherford used the pyramid to come up with 1925. It's just, oh, man.
He went to 1942, which was Armageddon for him because he died in January.
Yeah, January 1942. Rutherford and the KKK. I'm hearing Cat B say that. Yes, Rutherford and the KKK is not far-fetched. And from what I've understood is that they actually bought some time on that radio station that we were talking about earlier. But he also would give sermons, very anti-Semitic sermons. So the KKK and being anti-Semitic, those two things pretty much go together.
Yeah, part of the Declaration of Facts, stated to Hitler, our organization is international, yet we have not accepted a single dollar from any Jew. And I'm like, how do you even verify that?
Right? Right?
Me that somewhere in, in the middle of Montana, there's not somebody named Rabinowitz going to the Kingdom Hall?
Right? And they used to... Rutherford called them companies back then. He called Kingdom Halls companies. Right. Isn't that something? Yeah. Yep, right on, Cat. Cat B is on it, yep. She made another statement earlier. Rutherford made things up. As a charlatan.
The students that were left were
and he was political. He was political. She's right. He was political. Okay, we all said everything at the same time. So can you go first, Pete?
Yeah, I was
say what you said.
Cat said in the comment, didn't he say that the Bible students that left were the evil slave? Yes, he did. Those who didn't stay, didn't stay with the Jehovah's Witnesses, they were the evil slave class. And now the current governing body considers Rutherford as the evil slave class.
Do they really?
Because
what were you?
Some teachings and stuff.
Because why?
Because of some of the teachings that he had don't line up with what they're teaching now.
Gotcha. Okay. After all the many clarifications, not changes, but clarifications. Not flip-flops, but clarifications. Yep. Yeah, so I agree.
I was working on a video for Tuesday that was going to be about some of the Watchtower's flip-flops, but then I kind of digressed and the video started to take a different direction. So, as of right now, I still don't know what video I'm going to present Tuesday, but I'm going to try to make it as interesting as possible. I'll tell you one
what.
thing, it won't be good for the Watchtower.
Thank you. I back you up on that, sir. Back you up. Now, what were you saying, Pixie?
Gosh, it's so late, I don't even remember.
Oh, bummer. That sucks. I'm sorry about that. But we were all talking at the same time. Yeah, I believe it will. You know, I just think it's amazing how much Rutherford is really an interesting person to me. Just the gall and the nerve that he had, the stuff that he did was just unfreaking, like, who does that stuff? Evidently Rutherford did. And I'm amazed too about the...
It was bad publicity, so I guess that was his strategy. Oh, I know what I was going to say. There were a lot of radio shows back then that were very scandalous. And Billy Sunday had a radio show, and different ones had these radio shows. And these radio preachers were very political. And a lot of Rutherford's shtick was very anti-Catholic. I mean, he was so rabid against the Roman Church that they got in the papers over it. They tried to close the radio station down over it. But then I found out that the radio station didn't have the proper paperwork. There was, you've got to have licenses to broadcast. And so they had built the radio station on the Watchtower property with a big old tower, and they had it beaming over everybody. But I don't think they had the FCC stuff they were supposed to have, so they got shut down. But they had all kinds of, like you said, maybe the Klan had time there. I think that rings a bell, and then some of this anti-Catholic stuff. And I mean, Rutherford was not a nice man in any way.
He was very dogmatic. He was very much a tyrant. And to me, my opinion is he is the one that turned the organization of the Watchtower into a regime, because that was just his style. You know.
He had a wife and son that he ignored over these mistresses in California. I can't think of anything about him that was to be praised. I mean, I guess he took a good picture, but he was a drunk and a womanizer and a tyrant and ignored his wife and son. And
it sounds like my dad.
Dogma against other people's beliefs. And there's a whole list, so I guess that book might be. But I can't think of too many other shockers other than what I do know and what Pete contributed. But there might be some more.
I'm sure there
Kate
are.
B is making a comment too, saying Rutherford divided class distinctions, evil class, the other sheep, and so on. By the way, Cat B, I've seen your comments like everywhere on the bottom, underneath tons of videos. So you're very much a familiar person to me, even though I've never said hi. But yeah, so this is somebody that's just, she knows her stuff. I've seen tons of her comments. But yeah, she's right. He came in and he's the one that declared the organization a theocracy, right? A theocracy. So the Catholics are a theocracy, and then the Jehovah's Witnesses were a theocracy. I really see the organization as an attempt to be like a mini, like they've taken so many things from Catholicism and made it their own, like they're entitled to it. It's so similar to Catholicism, but then it's gone on even further to ridiculousness, you know?
Of course,
Well, it is impressive that they have 400 countries or 200 countries or whatever. I mean, we always forget that they're not just in America. That's amazing that they have all kinds of outreach like that. I guess the Methodists do as well.
Yeah, the organization claims to be the only one that does the kind of preaching that they do, and they're not. They're not the only ones.
No.
But I do think they have the most countries. Because the Methodists don't have as many countries. The Seventh-day Adventists, the Mormons. I think the Witnesses have the most countries. Gotta be accurate, I don't think anybody else has got as many.
Maybe so. I do know that the Mormons started like 100 years before Russell did, and they're extremely the most wealthiest.
Artist. I was watching a shot of him. He had some crazy ideas.
Joseph Smith?
Yeah, I was watching a show on YouTube that had ex-Mormons, and it was an hour documentary, and they were talking about all the things that happened before the Latter-day Saints went to Utah. And
Okay.
there were all kinds of illegalities, and he would scry into a hat with a stone, and he was passing $3 bills that were not government tender. He printed up these $3 bills.
Wait a minute. Had anybody made a $3 bill before him?
No, it was a beautiful print job. Oh my, they showed them. But
See,
they
so that way it's not counterfeiting, right? If it's not,
What did you?
It's not counterfeiting if it's not an actual copy of legal tender.
Oh my goodness! I think you might be right.
Right.
Yeah, well, anyway, he
But-
got arrested for the $3 bills and something else, and then there was a shootout, and he died, and then Brigham Young took over and took them all to Utah. But when the Mormons tell it, they act like the story of Nauvoo, they were wronged. And when these ex-Mormons were telling the history of it, it sounded like, oh, well, maybe that wasn't so good. So it's interesting how things get filtered out for the people that are members of a particular cult versus what actually happened.
Yes, very much so.
They teach that, Jesus came to the New World after he was executed in Jerusalem. Like he got resurrected and then came to the United States. So like the Mormon Bible is actually like a continuation of the New Testament.
Right. What was interesting about that, this lady who was Brigham Young was her great-great-great-grandfather, she was saying that all the things in the Book of Mormon were not backed up with any Native American anthropology. But the one thing that is, there's this story of Viracocha, who's this tall blonde guy who shows up in South America. So some of the Jesus ideas, I guess some people would really go for it because it goes along with the idea of the tall blonde Viracocha.
Well, that's a perfect example of eisegetics. If you believe Jesus came to the New World, and then you hear a story about some blonde guy who came to South America, eisegesis is going to tell you that was Jesus.
Right.
Whereas if you look at it exegetically, you'd say that's two totally separate stories, because in all the pictures I've ever seen of Jesus, he was never a blonde. He looked like Barry Gibb.
Because, the Vikings got around.
Oh, yes, they did. Yeah. The
What did you say,
Vikings,
Pixie?
the Vikings got
But
around.
it was probably a Viking.
Okay,
Right.
I see. Now, see, I've heard a story about somebody showing up in North America. That was a white person that had like a stone or something that he wore. I wonder if that's associated to the story you're talking about. That was supposed to have something to do with prophecy and visited the natives or something to do with that. But yeah, that was along the lines.
There were a lot of coastal stories like that. There was a
Okay.
supposedly Welsh prince met with a Cherokee. That's in their legends. And then we
Okay.
know for that the Vikings were in part of what is now Greenland, and used to be Greenland too, I guess.
Everybody eventually came to America except for one person, Christopher Columbus. Never set foot in North America. Ever.
Right.
Four trips across the Atlantic Ocean, missed the entire continent of North America. 4 times. Great Seal
So
of
why? So why? Why is this part of our, this American history that
He had
he had what?
Columbus is interesting. I had a dear friend in art school who was Catholic, and we started talking about, secrets of Rome and things like that. And he says to me that he went to Columbus's grave and that Christopher Columbus was the son of a Jewish woman and a cardinal. And that the same year that Columbus got the money to leave town with the ships was the beginning of the Inquisition.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow.
And Columbus
That's
had
scary.
a wonderful crew that spoke Arabic and Hebrew and all kinds of languages. So, the world in that time was as diverse as it is today, especially along the coast and with pirates and sailors and stuff. So that's a story, but we're not told that true story. We're told, a different kind of myth.
Yeah. Don't even
Okay.
get historical inaccuracies.
I missed I missed what you said a minute ago. I asked you why do we have Christopher Columbus as the person who discovered America, and you said what?
Why do we have him? That's what.
Yeah, that was a.
Yeah. No, Columbus never set foot on the entire continent. Columbus discovered Haiti, Jamaica, San Salvador, and then in his first trip, and then in his later trips, he landed in South America, and each trip he was going further and further south. And there is a theory in academia that Columbus may have actually been searching for the Garden of Eden. Because all these places he's landing, like the island of Haiti and Jamaica, is very tropical. And he's
okay.
Like, oh. And then when he discovered, South America, and it's like all these jungles, and he's like, it's got to be around here somewhere. And so, and so he just kept looking and kept looking. But I mean, that's a theory. But it's,
right.
As good as any other theory, I mean, obviously he wasn't trying to find North America because he had 50 years before Columbus had sailed here, Amerigo Vespucci had sailed the coast of North America drawing a map. So Columbus had a map of North America, and chose to ignore it.
Very much about Americus Vespucci or Ponce de Leon or any of those guys. They should tell us more about them. There's a whole book I've got called Jewish Pirates that I need to read this winter. And then the Cherokee claim that they have Middle Eastern in their bloodline. So maybe some of those pirates were hanging out.
Wow. 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 Well, usually about at the 2 hour point, let me just finish this, Piggy, and then you'll go ahead and say what you have to say. But I wanted to say that usually at the 2 hour point, I go to the phones and leave YouTube. And when we go to the phones, we have you guys call in and join us on the phone, which is 727-731-6701. Is that correct? Yeah. So that would be the number you would call in. 727-737. No, please, you're looking at it, Pete? I think he's looking it up for me. He's so good to me.
All this technology. 727-731-6701.
Thank you.
En español es 727-731-6701.
So I have the number as 727-731-6701.
Very good.
Is that correct? Thank you.
01, not 01. O is a letter.
Yep.
0 is nothing.
I stand corrected and deserved that. Thank you. You know, when I need to be corrected, I need to be corrected. So yeah. So it's not going to happen right now, but you know, like in the next 10 or 15, 20 minutes, I'll be going to the phone only. And then we continue on there. We get more casual, and it's still a good time. But if anybody wants to call in now, they're welcome to. If they have any, I'm sorry. I told Pixie that she was going to speak next. I just need to be disciplined here. Okay, Pixie, it's your turn.
We are now.
I'm sorry. What did you say? Oh.
I said, how can we be more casual than we are now?
Well, once we go to the phones, I take my shirt off.
But we can't see it because he's on the phone. Everybody's been complaining about this, you know? Yes.
With the Brellies, what do you think?
Say that again?
I think it's time for the drinks with the little Brellies.
Yes, the umbrellas, the umbrellas. I need to do it. I need to do a selfie with it.
Think about now. Get more casual.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. I really have a good time with the conversations we have here. I think tonight's conversation has been very fun, and I'm still willing to stay on it, or even just wherever it's been moseying to. I learn a lot from listening to you, Pete, and from you, Pixie, and the things that people say in the comments, you know. Either I look it up later and confirm it, or, you know, I just learn from you guys, and I just really enjoy it.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I mean,
Pete and I are going to put our pirate costumes on soon.
Yeah?
arr.
In honor of America's Vespucci.
Good old Amerigo. Gee, Amerigo. That kind of sounds like America, doesn't it?
Kind of does.
Coincidence?
So, Gilbert Gonzalez, who is now has a different logo, has just made a comment in the chat saying September 1st. And really, what percentage of the J-Dubs want to go out door to door? So what do y'all think? Do you think the Jehovah's Witnesses are looking forward to going back door to door?
I don't.
Or do you think some of them are just going, oh no?
I don't think they'll. Let's
The way
put it
the
this
real
way.
estate
I don't
market's
think they're
changed,
enthusiastic
everybody has
about
that Ring doorbell thing now, and people
I-
live in gated communities, and even if they're apartment renters, they've beefed up security in apartment buildings.
Yeah.
So in the last 2 years, it's gotten cheaper and easier to secure your house like that. So I think door to door is going to be difficult for those people.
You know what we're going to see, and this is going to be awesome, is starting in September, October, you're going to see a slew of YouTube videos featuring Ring doorbell footage of JWs at the door.
Oh, you're right.
Right? You're going
You're
to see
right.
probably all over TikTok. Yeah, or something like that. But yeah, you're going to be seeing like these Ring doorbell, videos of JWs. I don't think that the JWs are going to be enthusiastic about returning to the doors. The old time indoctrinated ones will do it because it's their duty. I think they'll be reluctant about it, but they'll go back to it. But I think some of the newer ones, especially any of them who may have come in since the lockdown, I think that, and then when their Bible study conductor says, okay, starting in September now, you're going to get to go door to door, and I think they're going to be like, nah. Well, it's going to be a test for the newbies, and it'll be interesting to see like what percentage of. I'll have to try to get in touch with my buddy down the street and ask him what his opinion is about going door to door.
Well, Gilbert Gonzalez again. So his channel is some initials NOCACA, and he just said in the comments that it has already happened. And what I'm suggesting is you go to his channel and look it up, because he actually was somebody at the door today and started a month early. And let me just say, it's the funniest thing I've ever seen. He knocked on a door, and then began, and then he just began. You got to look it up to see the rest. It's hilarious, really, it is.
I'll do that. Linda, do you realize what the name of his, you know what those letters spell, don't you?
I can't read it right now, but I looked at it earlier. National something, and then it's an org at the end. What does it stand for?
No caca.
Say that.
No caca.
Okay. Would Gilbert Gonzalez use abbreviations that mean no caca? Probably, but I think it actually stands.
I like that. that is a classic acronym from an ex-JW.
Oh my goodness.
We have another guy whose name is, J-Dub No More, right? This is the kind of the same thing, except no caca. I love it. Thumbs up.
Now, was this on purpose, Gilbert? And by the way, we vote for him to be a governing body member. GG for GB. That's right. He has he has offered himself to be an alternative for the governing body. And I've always told him he'll get my vote, because if we get him in there, that'll be great. So, my question just got answered with a yes. He did it on purpose to me, no caca. Is that right? I need to see another yes, because that just sounds like something he would do. He's got a comedy level that's all his own, and it's really fun to watch. I ended up meeting up with him a few years back after they had gathered to go to San Diego, and Gilbert Gonzalez, okay, it's another yes. He's confirming it. Good. Thank you for confirming that. So he's also responsible for, you've seen the plane that'll go across, an open air assembly, and it has a message at the end of it that says, something similar to JW Facts. It'll have a small statement, but it'll also say JW Facts on it. He's the one that started that, our Gilbert Gonzalez. And we have heard that there have been confirmations of people that have seen that, and it did support them in coming out of the organization. So good for you, Gilbert. Good for you.
JW Facts
so
is an awesome website.
Yes, it is. So I got to meet him a few years back. I ended up showing up late to go to one of those conventions to protest, I believe. And then he met up with us, and we talked for a good long time. It was a really casual conversation. And it was neat to meet him. He's actually much more handsome in person than he is on his videos.
Wow, this is all smoke and mirrors. If you meet me in person,
I don't think so. I don't think so. But yeah. So I wanted to say that in a few minutes I'll be going over to the phone calls only. But again, I want to suggest that you go over and look at the channel that Gilbert Gonzalez now has that evidently stands for No Caca. NOCACA. And look at the video he put out today, which is the 15th of August. No, are we still? Yeah, August. Trying to think. Yes, we're in August. No, today is the 6th of August. Goodness gracious. I don't even know where I'm at today. Sorry, guys.
we're in August?
Yes, it just began, August.
Yeah.
So did anybody want to call in and say anything? Enjoying the conversation or bring up something else? Bob Roberts, who is in Australia, says the 7th works for me, because he's ahead of us. Yeah. Thank you, Bob. Is there someone there?
Yes, hello, it's Susan. I'd like to join.
Hi. Oh, okay. So let me have the female go first and the gentleman go next. Go ahead, Susan.
Hi, I just am interested in joining the conversation, and I thought really good Gilbert Gonzalez, but I wrote down his channel, and I'd like to hear what he has to say.
I missed part of what you said. Are you talking about Gilbert Gonzalez's channel?
Yes, maybe I'm not coming in very clearly. It's hard for me to hear him too, because he's coming in very quietly. I can barely hear him on the line. But yeah, I'm not familiar with some of Gilbert Gonzalez's YouTube videos. He mostly talks about, I know he talks about the Watchtower, but does he talk about anything in particular?
A wide range of things, yes. And matter of fact, 2017, when they went to go protest at headquarters, he was also there. So I don't know if you went with Rick, but Rick was there too. So Gilbert, if you are on the line, if you can speak up, because Susan, Rick's wife, would like to know a little bit more about your channel. Do you happen to be there? The number is 727-731-6701, and you can call in and join us. And so this is an invitation for Gilbert. But yeah, he's got a very unique personality.
What makes him special?
Oh my goodness, you have to just meet him. He's got a little bit of, conceit, but it's all part of the show, if that makes sense. it's part of just part of his entertainment.
Yeah.
Which did not show up at all the night that I got to visit with him. So that's more like what he shows on camera.
Yeah. There's been a lot of really good people that we've come across as time goes on. Rick knows a lot of people, and there's so many out there that are really trying to, with their whole heart, trying to point people away from the Watchtower or exposing who they really are, because they're snakes in the grass, and you don't always see the bad that they're doing, and it looks like they're promoting Christianity, which is a good thing, but they're not. They're pushing their own agenda, and they're using the Bible as a tool in their arsenal of evil.
Yes, they are.
Yeah, I'm here. So if you have any questions, this is Gigi.
Oh, here he is. There he is. Welcome.
What?
I will tell you something. What happened a long time ago, probably 2014.
Can you speak up, please? Can you speak up?
Yeah,
thank you.
Yeah, everybody is getting into the apostate movement, and way back in the day, 2014, 15. I think even possibly Linda James was showing up about that time. But Neil, the great apostate, and I showed up about the same time. And Neil and I, we talked about it one time where how comedy, when you laugh at a dictator, when you joke and you show how ridiculous the leader of a country is, they lose power. So there's I forget who said it, but I think it was George Orwell, says every joke is a tiny revolution. So when you're attacking the king, you say the emperor has no clothes, you have to laugh at them. But when you get millions of people laughing at them, they lose power. So that's one of the things, I've noticed that a lot of the ex-JWs, they don't have a lot of good sense of humor, but a lot do. But that sense of humor is very important when you're trying to fight the Watchtower, because you can try to fight them with logic, but sometimes when you just show how silly they are and you laugh at them, that has a great effect as well. I don't know what you guys think about that.
That is a refreshing way to look at the witness. That is excellent.
Yeah, thank Neil the Great Apostate. Thank Neil the Great Apostate.
Yes, well, what are some of the jokes that you think are so big in their behalf?
Well, I'm GG for GB. I'm the governing body elect. I'm the Jehovah's Witness elder you wish you had when you were going to Kingdom Hall. I'm the first Hispanic ever voted in the governing body, so we got Spanish representation. So these are the things.
I'll vote. Yeah.
But the voting thing is very important because it goes to show when you see if you are a son of God, you can vote because you're a son. But Jehovah's Witnesses tell you have to wait 1,000 years to get God. You can't. You don't vote. You don't have a say. So it's just a way of laughing, but also to show that in humor that, hey, the reason I'm running for governing body is because I'm now a free human being. but the rest of the Jehovah's Witnesses can't run because they're slaves. See, it's a very simple concept in comedy.
Well, you know, when you your people in an African country not to vote, then they can put a dictator in too easier.
And also, you know, imagine how it feels when you get a piece of paper, and I'm going to be doing this here pretty soon with a new website. I bought this website called ggforgb.com. And so people will be able to print and then send a letter to Watchtower. But imagine how refreshing it is to be able to send Watchtower a letter. There was a picture of a voting ballot, and knowing that the young kids in the mailroom are getting it. It feels good, and you're laughing at them, and you know that they're getting it in the mail, so it's funny, but you know it's having an effect because you're demoralizing people, and that demoralization will eventually lead those people to wake up and get out.
You know, that's so true. I just read on the Reddit Jehovah's Witness channel. It's for XJWs, but under Jehovah's Witnesses, and it's the smaller of the two. But they had a whole series of articles of people who were in Bethel and how they reckoned. And there were so many that were there that realized that at Bethel they were just a business, that Bethel didn't really care about them, and they moved them around and disciplined them at whim. And if you just read through that, it's an eye opener, even for me, to know what happened at Bethel and to see who they really are, because their actions speak louder than their words. That's for sure.
I will tell you one thing real important. This is the last thing I really have to say, but you know, right now on the screen it says Rick Barron, XJW, Curious Pete, and possibly Linda James. You see, all of us have an expiration date. Now, Rick Barron has been doing this for a long time, but what's the reason a lot of the Jehovah's Witnesses apostate? They shut their channel down and they go away. You see that, right? You see a lot of people like, hey, where's so-and-so? Where's Joe? Where's Tom? Where's Mary? They stop doing videos. Well, you know why? Because apostasy has to be fun. You have to enjoy what you do. And because apostasy Linda James is having fun what she's doing, well, then she's able to come here every weekend. And that's basically my message to you, is that it has to be fun. And the moment it stops being fun and you're being angry, you should probably just take a break, and that's okay. But that's my message to all of you there and everyone listening, is don't do the apostate work unless you're having fun. And you'll have good results.
Well, Rick sure does have fun. He does. And so does Linda.
Thank you, Gilbert.
Thanks, by the way.
Hi.
Sorry.
No,
Hello.
go ahead. Hi. Did you want to talk to Gigi?
Not thanks. Yeah, I just wanted to say that that's a great statement that Gigi made. I love laughing at the ridiculousness of Jehovah's Witnesses and the organisation, but I know that I can't make videos about it, because if I sit on a subject for too long, it just makes me angry. And I haven't been able to shake that at the organisation yet. So that is the exact reason why I'm not doing activism, I guess you would call it, involved in this. I try and help it when I can. I try and help as much as I can, but there's no way I can make videos. It would just be me screaming at the camera.
Trust me, there's been times I've wanted to just get on the camera and start in. And I know it wouldn't have been pretty, so I made myself not. But there's times of being, it's absolutely deserving, it's justified to be that angry.
That's a lot of the reason why I haven't done a live stream
I
on
can
my
take
channel.
a lot on board on myself. Oh, sorry, am I talking over somebody?
I was
Every
just
story
saying
that I hear makes me angry.
yeah,
Yeah,
I
Remember
agree with
those generation videos that were animated on YouTube? They were so funny that they really helped me a lot years back.
Okay.
You know,
Yeah,
getting back to this issue of anger, that is something that a lot of ex-Jehovah's Witnesses deal with. There's a lot of anger at the organization, at individual brothers and sisters that treat them so badly. It's hard to work through that, I know.
Not just that, not just being angry at the organization and at specific brothers and things, but speaking from my own brother's experience, he's still a Jehovah's Witness, but the biggest thing he complains about is how he was raised. Because he was raised within the organization and has serious problems with the way he was raised, he cannot get rid of that anger that he has towards my parents for raising him in an organization that hurt him so much, even though he's still in it. I believe he's been PMO for 20 years, but he was abused within the organisation and just hates the way we were raised. We weren't ever allowed to learn anything. I had a scholarship to university. I was never allowed to go. He's a really good sportsman, but he was never allowed to play sports and that kind of thing. Just that he finds it so hard to shake that anger from my parents for raising us within this organisation. If only I was raised different, imagine what I could be.
Well, I call it the great betrayal, because you come to a point where you realize how betrayed you were when you were such a true believer. And I know I'm not the only one that felt that way.
Yes. I've made a comment a couple of times that the hardest part about leaving the organisation was realising that Jehovah didn't love me. Nobody loved me like they said that they did within the organisation. That really you're taught that you have the world, that God behind you, holding you up. And then when
I believe that. I think that got me through times when nothing else would have gotten me through. And I really did believe that. And I kind of sort of still believe that. I've always believed that the good Lord would tell me what to say when I needed to say it, and that he had my back, kinds of things in school and business and health and every other thing. So
I am jealous that you had that feeling. Sorry, you go.
Well, the Watchtower tries to make you think that Jehovah's Santa Claus, and that whatever you want, he will do for you. And as long as you toe their line, you're owed that. He owes you. That's what they teach you. That they say Jehovah, which they don't mean Jehovah, but they're talking about some pie in the sky idea of what God is. So now we think God's Santa Claus, and all we have to do is go out in service and go to the meetings and pray and study, and whatever we ask God for, that's what we're going to get. It's just not true. And that's the big lie. That's why they're so reprehensible, because they're teaching an idea that does not, of a God that does not exist.
I wanted to add to that thing about the anger. This is Gigi again. I remember seeing in the movie, the musical Grease, when she goes, "If you can't be an athlete, be an athletic supporter." And that was kind of funny. But the point is this: if you cannot be an apostate, be an apostate supporter. And I'll give you an example. Like right here, XJW Curious Pete and Apostate Linda James, they're supporting and encouraging the Rick Farron show. You see, so he's right. The caller is right when he says that he can't make videos because he's going to be yelling. But that doesn't mean he can't do something. He can find 2, 3, 4 YouTube channels that he really likes, and he can be like their ambassador. He can be out there, maybe in social media or in the comment sections or others, and he can be supporting other people that he likes. So we all have we all help each other out, and that's my advice to him. If he can't do videos, well, be a supporter and do his best and be the best supporter of Apostate.
And that's why I'm here every week for Linda's show. And that's why I comment every time that Pete puts the video out, because it helps the algorithm. Any support that I can do for the community that's helped me so much, I try and do. Yeah, but I completely agree with what you said. No, not everyone can make the videos. Not everyone can be the face of the activism. but I can definitely be behind helping.
And you perk me up every time.
Dixie,
You know, when every video I release,
always
I
listening.
love,
Hold on just a minute. Hold on just a minute. Go ahead. Hold on just a minute. Go ahead. Hello. So go ahead, Pete.
I didn't
I
hear
was
any of
going
that.
to say, the best thing I like about doing my videos is the interaction I get in the comment section from the people who are viewing, especially the ones who say, you know, your videos are helping me fade, or your videos are helping me wake up. Keep coming with them, you know. That's what gives me the motivation to keep going. And I just celebrated my first anniversary with the YouTube channel, and it's growing pretty well. And I'm very happy with it, very surprised that it is growing the way it is. I never thought that this many people would be interested in hearing anything I had to say. But, you know, some of my videos are serious, some of them not so much so, you know, because after all is said and done, it is an important message that we're trying to get out. But, you know, I try to use a little humor in some of my videos because I love humor. You know, it is a great way to make a point that people, you know, don't think about. George Carlin used to open some of his shows with, "My job isn't to make stuff up. It's just to remind you of funny stuff that you forgot to laugh at." And it's a really great approach to take. So, yeah, some of my sarcasm may come out in my comments during my videos. And that's why I love the comments, because people will respond to certain lines that I say, or certain things that I say. And it's like, I don't even really think of those as being funny, but yet it's still making people laugh. And that's a good thing. Laughter is very important.
Well, I like the style of your videos very much. I've really enjoyed them.
Thank you, Pixie. I can see you sitting there in the pirate costume
I
watching.
don't know if it's going to be a witty one or a serious one. It's like each one is different, and that's a gift.
Yeah, it's you know, I did a video ways back where I was reacting to a conversation or an interaction on Facebook, and I don't do a lot on Facebook, but I had posted a link to a video, and it ended up being a very lengthy thread. So I turned the conversation into a video where I was using emojis to represent myself and the person that I was talking to. And great response on the video. Because, I mean, the woman that I was talking to was such an indoctrinated JW. She was all over the place. She was contradicting herself. She was talking in circles, totally ignoring anything that was actually in the video. And I got so much great response to that video. You know, so yeah, you got to mix it up sometimes.
I just wanted to take a minute to say hi to Josh from Hawaii. Josh, I can't even say your whole name, but you just said you just chimed in a little bit ago and said aloha from Hawaii, and this was in the chat of YouTube. So hello, Josh.
Hey, Josh, hang loose, man.
Yeah, you do bring different flavors.
You've got a fan club from all over the world, Linda.
Yeah.
I didn't even think about that. But I did get to sing character. Say that.
Material for your videos.
We're huge in the Southwest Pacific.
Is that where they washed that man right out of their hair? South Pacific was the
Yeah.
musical. I'm gonna wash that man right out of my hair. Yeah, that one. That's so old school.
Which was then turned into a shampoo commercial.
Yep.
Showing
Who
my
else is
age.
here? Yep, we're a little bit on the old school side. It's all good.
1978,
Yeah.
went to an international
Yeah.
assembly in Honolulu. That was the best JW experience I ever had.
You were at an assembly in 1978 in Honolulu?
Yep, international assembly.
Okay. I think I know why he's saying this. And I think that's a good reason, sir. Yes, I do. It's a beautiful place, I must say. It's a beautiful place.
I was a 17-year-old boy on an island with a bunch of beautiful women. I was in my glory, and I don't think I attended more than 2 hours of the entire assembly. I was too busy taking in the sights.
I don't know how you got away with that. My mama would have beat that demon right out of me.
Well,
But good for you.
every assembly that I ever went to, every district assembly and international assembly, I would volunteer to work because I could not sit in an auditorium listening to that constant droning. So I would
This
go
makes
work
sense.
in the kitchen, or I would do this or that. So when I said to my mother, I'm going to be working in the kitchen, she'd say, okay, and I just take off. Hit the streets of Waikiki.
Wow. Is there somebody else coming in?
No, this is Gigi, and I was going to answer that question she asked about what do you get ideas or inspirations for comments, right? We're talking topics, right?
Sure.
Well, I've already talked about this a little bit with the topic based on the James. That this is very interesting. You have to believe that the fight of good and evil, it's not about you or me. We're just players. So you have to trust the spirit. I'll give you an example. I can't reach people who are black, perhaps Black Americans, or homosexuals, or young 20-year-old women, or 70, 80-year-old women in the JW experience. It's just, I'm different. But that's why everybody has to do their thing, and everybody has to talk about the things that they like, because it's going to resonate, and somehow the spirit will find those people, and they'll find you on YouTube, and you'll notice people will gravitate to your message, and they find each other, and then they say, wow, I was looking for somebody who thought like I did, or I was looking for somebody who went through the same experience I went to. So that's why it's so important to just trust your gut instinct, trust what you believe and what you experience, and somebody out there is going to resonate with your message. Because remember, the fight's not yours and the fight's not mine. It's a fight between good and evil. And we're just players. So let's just play in the field of, in this beautiful battle. Does that make sense?
It does. Yeah, it really does. We need each other's uniqueness, and that's what I hear you saying. And it's okay to be knowing that you have a certain area and you're not going to reach certain groups, and that's okay too. And because you're not going to reach certain groups, we need others that will. And our different personalities is really good for this. Yeah.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
That's another thing that really pains me when I think back on it. So many people had so many gifts and talents, and it's like the policy puts a brick on the head of every one of them.
Yes, it does.
Very true.
What were you going to say, Pete?
Going back to the previous caller's comment about reaching different groups and stuff. Now, I'm a approaching elderly white male. Some would people say I'm already there. You know, so you would think that there's a very narrow demographic that I can reach. But yet I have people from all walks of life, all age groups that respond to my videos. And, you know, like I get comments from people in South Africa and Australia and up in like Finland and Germany. And it's mind blowing that like literally people from all over the world are watching the videos. And although I may not represent their demographic, as XJWs, we all share a lot of the same experiences. You know, now we each view those experiences from our own perspective. But yet, when we mention something like, you know, being brought to the back of the hall, we all know what that means. You know, because we've all had that as children, we all had that experience. You know, and we can make references that we've all shared, and that's, you know, going out on service, giving talks, you know, being counseled by, that doesn't apply to any specific group. All JWs dealt with that at some point or another. And so, you know, although I have a pretty narrow demographic group that I represent personally, the message gets to be shared by a lot of people who have shared the same experiences. And that, I think, is what makes the XJW community as strong as it is. You know, because we do have a bond from these shared experiences.
Yes. And it was a culture that we were a part of. And culture is very strong. Matter of fact, the word cult comes from culture. So, and we all want to be part of culture. It's a human need to be part of, you know, having people in your life and everything. And that's why this whole ostracism thing is so abusive, you know, just so abusive. When you get cut off from your own, the only culture you're allowed to have when you're in the organization. You're right. We can talk the talk, which is called loaded language, usually, and to anybody from anywhere, and we'll click in with them because they lived the same culture as we did. And that's a certain bond that's very, very, well, it's bonding. I see it much like when World War, you know, 1 or 2 prisoners of war gather and they get to talk to each other. I think of it as just that vital, just that big of a deal, you know. It's like, oh wow, you know, that situation for them being prisoners of war was a huge thing. And I think it's no accident that, you know, people like Margaret Singer and Robert J. Lipton studied those prisoners, or studied some prisoners, and found out the characteristics that are used for quote unquote brainwashing, which is not the proper term, but these are also the same characteristics that are used inside of the cults of today across the board. I think there's no accident in that. And I think that when we get a chance to talk to each other, it is that same kind of bond that we survived as prisoners of war because we were held captive. I'm going to say goodbye to the YouTube audience, but if you would stay on, Pete, to so I can call in so I don't lose track. But whoever wants to talk next is welcome to. I'm going to switch off here on YouTube and go ahead and go to the phones and call in.
People from all over the world. That's just great.
I think so too.
Yeah, it's
That's the one thing the witnesses did have right. That whole earth-wide thing.
Well, that's
Worldwide, yes.
He went to find Catholic schools and everything, and they try to do it, but they didn't have congregations like we did, but were like little. It's a small world.
Yeah. They didn't have congregations.
Very true.
Had to walk 6 miles, cross alligator-filled rivers to get to a meeting. Yeah.
That's right. All those
Yep.
alligators in those rivers.
Oh, those
Sometimes
alligators
6
and
7 alligators
crocodiles.
at a time.
And lions and tigers and bears. Oh my!
Oh my! But there's always a hot shower and a clean shirt at the end of the alligator trail, Pete.
There you go. There you go. Depending on where you are, that hot shower may not be of the cleanest water, but hey, they're working on it. Just, when you think about right now, the world has 7.5 billion people on it, and there's areas of the world where people don't even have clean water. It makes you really wonder.
I think the Watchtower could dig a few wells for those people.
Yeah.
So big on construction and learning how to build and do. You'd think they could send some union plumbers to Africa to get a well with every Kingdom Hall or something.
Yeah. For the price of a cup of coffee, they could provide water. I wonder what's going to happen like after the resurrection when this very same earth has 100 billion more people on it. What are they going to do?
I know that. They'll have cups of coffee, Pete. There's coffee in paradise.
Oh, no. Coffee and bacon.
That's right. That's right.
All be pig farmers and coffee plantation owners singing praise to Jehovah.
That's it.
Dressed in pirate costumes.
Don't you think? Little bongo drums. We need more percussion.
Yeah, there you go. I think next time I'm on the show, I'm just going to sit here like a 50s beatnik, snapping my fingers as I talk.
Yeah. I think that would be good. I think we should have an ex-witness convention with beatnik attire.
There we go. I'm going to have to go to a thrift store and get myself a beret. I hope it's not demonized.
That works. That works. Beret and sunglasses and some bongos.
Yeah. I'll have to trim this down to just a little soul patch. Right? Trim this down to just a soul patch.
Yeah, a little goatee, little point.
Yeah, man. I can dig it.
Yeah, man. Cool, man. Cool.
Alrighty. I wonder if
some beatnik missionaries. They, sometimes they'd go to countries and they'd kind of go native. They were never the same again, but it was in a good way.
Yeah, sometimes you end up in a place where, it kind of makes you rethink your priorities.
Yeah. And they have beautiful exotic island women, or some exotic beauty in Africa or something. And, and then, the white brother from New Jersey ends up with this exotic, fabulous sister that is very different from anyone in New Jersey. Things like that.
Oh, yeah. Hey, as long as they got coffee and bacon.
They do. They do.
There you go. What more does a man need?
That's about it. You got it right. Yeah, I was kind of sad that I got kicked out of the missionary meeting when I was like 11. I guess I was too young to be there. I'd already traveled so much, I thought, being a missionary would be a piece of cake.
Right.
A missionary meeting. Oh, by the way, I'm back. Hi, guys. I'm back.
Hi.
And I'm on the phone. Hi. Missionary meeting.
Pete's
What is
decided
that?
that we should go full beatnik, that should be our look.
Yeah. I think the next time I'm on Linda, we should all wear berets.
They're going to do a beatnik missionary look, and we're going to have, the men can all have goatees, and, the women have flip and little shift dresses, and bongo drums. We all have to have percussion.
Okay. Can we all have a day of that we write the organization? So when they have a camp, how they've had campaigns, for Russia and all that, and they tell you each name of whoever's in government. We could do that with the organization.
We should have one where we demand our records back. Have you been following that issue?
No, I have not. Tell me.
Well, supposedly all these kingdom halls have records of everybody that attended. And it's possible that under the law we might be able to request back our own records.
Mm-hmm. That would be something.
Wouldn't it?
Yes, it would. And I believe at headquarters, all of the records of all Jehovah's Witnesses worldwide are there.
Right.
Yeah.
As well.
So, send a little letter saying I would like any and all, fill in real name and real name of family members, and say, please send any and all records on brother and sister, and let me know. And then they send the letter, and I think legally they have to send it back to you with the records.
Yeah, I was wondering.
I'm totally picturing it going wrong. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was wondering how far back those records might go, because I've been inactive for over 40 years. Now last I don't know, maybe 6 months ago, I was actually in contact with a current elder from my local congregation, and he seemed to not be aware of anything from my history. So I'm wondering if there's my record is still there, or if they had a burn party for it.
They might have.
I know there were some elders that would have loved to have burned me. But maybe they burned my records in effigy.
Your questioning has always done for you. It's gotten you kicked out of authoritative places.
Yeah. Well, that was just a matter of timing. They weren't born until I had already been out for 5-6 years.
And see, the Kingdom Hall that had my records, and by the way, I was never baptized, but they still had records on me. That Kingdom Hall got closed down decades ago. So it would be needing to ask them for their records that are at headquarters. Something tells me things will go terribly wrong if we do this, though. And I don't know if it's just my own triggering that I might be experiencing, but this is where my head is going. So
well, look at what happened with
giving them our addresses, right?
Yeah. Look at what happened with Kevin McCree. I mean, Watchtower was after him for 3 years to try to find out who he really was. And that's
related to.
Presumably just so he could, find out if they were relatives. Or if he, I guess the rumor is he's actually still an active JW. But I don't know how true that is.
Who is it?
So that,
or how active he is. Well,
Kevin McFree,
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
who has a
Oh,
channel.
yeah,
on
wonderful
YouTube.
work.
I mean, like,
They were trying to
technically,
who he was.
you know, technically, I'm still considered a baptized JW, even though I've been inactive for 40 years. But, you know, baptism is a legally binding contract for life. You know?
I don't believe that a child can make a legal contract. I think it's
Not under the laws of most countries. But Watchtower doesn't care about that. Right?
Well, you know, these lodges, some of these other lodges, the old saying, you know, you had to be 21 to be a lodge member.
Right.
So that was because you were entering with an oath.
Yeah. Well, that's what the baptism questions are. You know, that's your public oath that you are signing on to become a slave of the Watchtower Corporation for the rest of your life.
So I think there's a legal problem. 8 years old doing that, but again, it's religion, so
Yep.
there's a lot of things that slide because it's religion.
Yeah. It's nice to live in a country where we have so many freedoms, but when you have freedoms, there are always going to be people who take advantage of that. And in the USA in particular, your religious freedom is definitely exploited. You know, look at the whole rash of new churches.
But that's the other side of the coin.
Yeah.
That there are, you know, exemptions and things that are done in the name of religion.
Yeah. So is the YouTube broadcast going to be shutting down, or?
Well, I left it, and you can leave it too now.
All righty.
I think it will shut down.
Okay. So nice talking with you, Pixie. I'm going to be getting off YouTube and...
Well, have a wonderful evening, Pete, and sweet dreams.
You too. Take care.
Thanks. The night is still young, Linda. Sometimes it's 4 in the morning.
Sometimes, yes.
It's not that late yet.
I think so. I'll tell you what, I've enjoyed partying with you on many a times on Six Screens.
Yeah, we've been up late.
It just, I know we're just talking over the phone, but it just feels like a party sometimes because
it definitely is.
We start laughing about it and all kinds of stuff. It's just really interesting.
Well, it's Saturday night.
Yeah. I love it when Pete joins me, and I try to have him on usually for the first Saturday of the month. Sometimes something will come up and he won't be able to make it or whatever. But yeah, I always love what he brings to the table, and he really knows his stuff. So to me, him having the subscription amount that he has is not surprising. It just isn't.
Oh, but it's wonderful that he's got people all over.
Yeah, like he writes out a script, he does his homework, and just does his due diligence. So, you know, what he brings to the videos is, you know, some good quality stuff. And sometimes he'll bring in his thoughts, and he'll tell you they're his thoughts, but he has on, like when you go to his video, you can open it up in the description box. He's got all these links based from what he's just talking about on that video, you know, so you can look it up and confirm it. And I love, love, love that.
Yeah, he does a good job. Lloyd Evans has got some videos again. He seems to have gotten back on the track for serious Bible discussions and critiques. He's not putting his personal life in it or anything. I saw one by him the other day that was new and it was pretty good.
Oh, what was the subject?
I can't remember now, but I thought, that's pretty journalistic and pretty good. And it was presented very well, and so he's kind of back doing his job.
Okay. And
he has
the show. Go ahead.
I said he's got a good producer and a good show, and he always has deep Bible discussions about doctrines that he doesn't agree with or something. He's pretty thorough.
He does get thorough with his videos. When Gail and Delon were on earlier, and they were speaking of the Belgium case, in my mind, I got to remember the Belgium case from the Lloyd Evans video. They covered it, and they covered it. I mean, Lloyd's video covered it very well.
Yeah. So I'm watching stuff again, and
and if you put it in a place of, I get that there was a big deal about, do we really want to support someone who doesn't connect child trafficking to going to prostitutes in Thailand, and being held accountable to it. And Lloyd was like, I ain't apologizing to none of you all except for my wife, And then there was a lot that was going on around that too. But there's people that we do business with in life that if the leadership of that business, I just found out this year that Ford, the company started off that they were very anti-Semitic.
Oh, there's more to it than that. Read Edmund Black's book. Oh, there's all kinds of it with Ford and IBM and the machines, and oh my goodness, you've got to read the Edmund Black book.
Oh, interesting. So
there's more to that.
Situations like that. So situations like that might cause people to boycott these companies, or it doesn't bother them at all, and they will still buy from these companies. So it's you pick whatever works for you.
There's no perfection in the world, and when we were going to the Kingdom Hall, we were in a world that was pretending to be a utopia. It was actually a dystopia, and we were taught that we would be perfected, and we were taught that the world was supposed to be perfect. And there ain't no such thing as perfection. So, it was shocking. I remember my aunt and uncle, they loved to watch CBS Sunday morning. And it was such a shock that Charles Kuralt did those wonderful travel reports, and that he had a mistress. And after he died, it was told, he went on all those trips, and he was going to see this woman in between his newscasts. And people are like, well, but the newscasts were still great.
Oh, fascinating. Okay.
So we've got on stage and we've got off stage. It doesn't mean that the message they're presenting is not well presented,
I agree with you. And it just depends on how well, how we want to look at it, how it affects our conscience. And if it does bother you big time and you want to just have no part of him or his videos, no problem. If it does not, no problem. That's just my point of view.
Now, the thing you mentioned with Ford and IBM were metaphorically in bed with the Nazis.
Really? Now, see, this is the first
the people that had the tattoos and the
IBM
stamps. Did you know that was an IBM punch card thing?
No way. I did not know. Fascinating.
Way. And so Edmund
Wow.
Black has written
IBM.
a book about this, and he talks about IBM and how they had to have known because the workman goes in there to service the punch card machine. Okay.
Fascinating.
But then when I was working on a show over there in the archives and getting my footage and everything and talking to the archivist, the thing I told you about, the guy named Carl that was at the branch, I said, well, why doesn't your bookstore carry Edmund Black's book? They had a lot of other very insightful books. They had one by a witness sister. They had a lot of terrific biographies from people that survived. But they didn't have Edmund Black's book in there. So I don't know why, but, you know, IBM's a big company.
Fascinating.
It is. Some of these things,
too.
some of these little history like that.
Say that again, Brad. What did you say?
That is a really great book. I've read that book.
Yeah.
IBM and the Holocaust, I think it's called.
Yes.
And
Wow.
it talks about everything that Pixie just said. Yes. And it is a bit of an eye-opener if you've never heard the information before.
Yeah, like I never have yet. That's interesting. I'm looking it up right now. Oh my goodness. I just put in IBM and that's all in my search engine, okay? And it just
and it's
the first thing that comes up. Yeah. The Holocaust, the strategic alliance between. Wow.
Yes, that's it.
Okay.
Yes, that's it. The strategic alliance between Nazi Germany and America's most powerful corporation.
And then it's wow. I haven't opened it up yet because I just wanted to stand and stare at this for a second. Oh wow. I prefer if it's at all on audio. I would
Probably
love to
is
on audio. Yeah. Author. Oh wow. Okay. I'm looking at him. He's an American historian. Edwin
Yes, he
Black.
is. All his books are good.
Fascinating. Okay.
Yeah, I bet they've got an audio book because that book sold like hotcakes.
Guess what I just found?
An audio book?
I just found an audio book on YouTube for free.
We are awesome.
Oh yeah.
I'm just giving us all a high five right now. It's like, yeah, way better than back in the day when we were studying for the Watchtower for a Sunday. Here we are on a Saturday night finding books on audio. So if you don't mind, Brad, please send me that link through Instagram. I would really appreciate it. Thank you so
Doing
much.
it now.
Yay. So you're right, Pixie. He's got other books too.
Oh, all of them are good. I mean, you know, he's a historian of the highest caliber.
Fascinating. Okay, so I'm looking at some of his books. Edwin Black is War Against the Weak. This other one is called Transfer Agreement.
Mm-hmm.
Nazi Nexus. So Nexus means like center.
Mm-hmm. So all four of those books would be World War II intensive.
I see. Banking in Baghdad.
Oh, that would be a different one.
Yeah.
That's probably interesting too.
And then Financing the Flames, and it shows a Jewish star.
There you go.
Financing the Flames,
The World War.
Edwin Black.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And I'll just stop there because that's fascinating. I've never heard of this person and must learn about him.
Well, I'm sure that all the audiobooks that he has been author to were great. So you've got a whole winter list there for when it rains. You'll have audiobooks.
Nice. Yeah. and I'm a subscriber to something called Scribe, and they will sometimes have, or oftentimes actually have, the book I'm looking for, and I find out about them just like this. Just hearing it from somebody else, and a lot of times it's on audio as well. But this Scribe is like less than $10 a month, and I've never regretted it. I listen to books all the time. Yeah. Okay. Thank you for telling me about this book. And
Good.
If anybody else ends up looking it up and reading it or whatever and has any comments about it, feel free to bring it up on a show in the future. That'd be really cool. I know that there was a time that the United States was involved in eugenics, which is something I would like to believe didn't happen, but it did happen. It was the case.
I think the book by Edmund Black, that second title, is about that.
Okay.
There's another download.
Okay.
One very fascinating thing, they had a newsletter at the Holocaust Museum, and it would list, like, some of these people were quite old and they lived really wonderful lives after they survived that hardship. And it was fascinating to me, some of the marvelous things that were invented and done by some of those survivors. The lady that popularized aerobic exercise came to America, and she had been a child in that hardship. And there was another one that had developed the best toys ever, Ideal Toys. And they were the most beautiful toys ever produced in America, Ideal. And he had been a survivor as a kid in one of those situations, and he just dreamed that if he ever got out of there, he would have a toy company, and he did.
Okay. It's those
stories
kinds of dreams.
They're just inspiring, you know?
It's those kinds of things to look forward to that keep us going during times of hardship.
Yeah, yeah.
And the Ideal Toy Company were the ones that invented Matchbox cars. So that's how big that was, that company.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay. Fascinating.
Mm-hmm. Now the car
company. I was just going to say, we grew up in such a culture that limited our intake of information. It doesn't surprise me that I'm finding these things out later, you know, plus my learning disabilities and stuff. But I just love it when I get to find out stuff. I love it.
Well,
thank you.
Well, there were people that didn't want Black to publish that book, so it's, you know, there was some controversy there, but then it sold so well. So that book was a big deal when it came out.
Okay.
But Ford Motor Company, you mentioned Ford, there's all kinds of scandal there too, but they made a good car, and Henry Ford was the first person to make more than one car at a time. So you've got to pat him on the back and give him credit for that.
Yeah. And when there was a Ford company in town, it employed many people, you know, many people.
And he was the first person to put Black people in the union jobs on the line. So he was very good as far as that was concerned. But I don't think he liked Jewish people at all. That's the story.
Okay. So when you say union, are you saying that so people that would get jobs there that were eligible for the union, meaning there
it paid marvelously well. It was a new industry, and he had some utopian ideas, like he had people sent around to make sure that the factory homes were nice and clean, and and some of these people had English classes if they were from, you know, a country that didn't speak English originally, and then a lot of black people from the South came north and got union wage, and so there was good and bad to it. Again, we were taught such black and white thinking that sometimes you've got to look at something and say, okay, there was a downside to it. Was there an upside too?
Yeah, I have a friend of mine who has, she sits me down and says things like, there's nothing that's all good nor all bad. And what she's really telling me is that there's nuance in between. You can't categorize things as being all on the bad side or all on the good side. And yes, we were taught that black and white thinking, which is actually that. They're either all good or they're all bad. And it's the us that's good and the them that's bad. It's us and them. Black and white thinking.
He was the first person to make more than one card.